Huh? What? What, are we still doing this? Fine, whatever. God. Alright. On with the show. Hey everybody, Sol here. I have only one rule here. If it's animated, I'll comment on it. And October is still chugging along at a brisk pace, so we're gonna take another look at a spooky movie befitting of this macabre month of horror. And you know what? Let's just not waste any more time, because October doesn't last forever. Yeah, believe me, I know. I once tried to build a machine that would keep October in an infinite loop, but it turned out to be a lemon meringue pie and an open can of beer attached to a radiator. Anyway, let's move on from my failure as an inventor, and let's dig up a nice pile of Frankenweenie. Okay, so it's time for another cinema story time, courtesy of Sol's blasphemous, ungodly history powers. Okay, so Frankenweenie was originally a live-action short created by Tim Burton in 1984, which caused him to be fired by Disney as he was accused of wasting resources on the film. Oops. A couple decades later, after some production issues, Frankenweenie was revived as a full-length stop-motion remake produced by Disney and directed, again by Tim Burton, and released in 2012, where it went on to be nominated for a bunch of awards, including an Academy Award. Jeez, I swear I didn't plan to review all these Oscar nominees, it just sorta happened that way. Now, since this movie's in black and white, I feel I should gutsy myself up for the occasion. Ah, yeah, that's better. And whoa. Oh, I suddenly feel so whimsically macabre, like I could sing a song about pulling my own head off and still make it charming. Is Danny Elfman available to do a soundtrack? Oh right, sorry, this is Frankenweenie. I'm gonna say this right off the bat. The title has nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. So, why is it called Frankenweenie? Don't ask me, I have no idea. But moving on, the plot involves a young boy named Victor, whose only friend is his dog, Sparky. But that friendship ends abruptly as Sparky is hit by a car during Victor's baseball game. After about half a day of grieving, Victor decides to tell his emotions to fuck off, and instead takes the completely 100% logical route of digging up the corpse of his dog and reanimating it so he can once more walk this mortal coil and break the laws of life and death. But, you know, at least Victor still has someone to play fetch with. Victor's jealous classmates hear about the affront to nature through the hunchbacked grapevine and attempt to win the school science fair by playing God too. Really, they should have just called this what it is. Young Frankenstein. But, well, I guess they couldn't because Mel Brooks beat them to it. But in discussing the actual plot, frankly, it's unsettling to say the least. The concept could, in theory, be another stage for a whimsical, Burton-esque foray into the logistics of the living dead, but unlike Corpse Bride, this particular foray has absolutely no heart and soul to it whatsoever. For the characters, there's Victor Frankenstein, who's currently going through an awkward phase in his life. You know the one I'm talking about, we all went through it. You know, where it's late at night, you're waiting for that hunky boy or busty girl to call, then suddenly you're like, let's go dig up corpses! I mean, come on, grave robbery is basically as common as geometry homework when you're at that age. Really, I don't have a single thing to say about Victor other than just, the kid is a fucking psychopath. I know that losing something, especially a beloved pet, can be hard on a child, but why in fuck hell does Victor's mind instantly jump to reanimating the corpse of his dog? It's disturbing, to say the least. I get that we're supposed to sympathize with Victor because of his loss, but all I see is a kid who's one step away from becoming the next Dexter. Then there's Sparky, the dog. If viewers should feel sympathy for anyone in this movie, it's the fucking dog. After all, he didn't ask to be torn away from the sweet embrace of death just so he can lie his cold, festering corpse down at the foot of his disturbed master's bed. I mean, doesn't this poor creature have a right to death? In terms of personality, he's a dog. What do you want me to do, write you a textbook? Also, there's a bunch of side characters, like Edgar E. Gore, a creepy as fuck kid who blackmails Victor into reanimating the corpse of a goldfish, Toshiaki, a moderately racist Asian stereotype who wants to beat Victor at the science fair, Bob, a fat kid who is fat, Nassor, a Frankenstein's monster-looking kid who also wants to win the science fair, and this weird girl who considers her cat's shit to be omens and reminds me a little too much of creepy Susie from The Oblongs.
Drowning is my third favorite way to die, but they are all good.
Other than their designs, which are stylized and detailed very nicely, there's really nothing to say about these guys, except for Toshiaki. Is he racist? I feel like he's racist, but I'm not sure. Now then, let's take a gander at what makes this movie good. At this point, you probably know I'm gonna say that the stop motion is great, but that's to be expected from a Tim Burton film. Though, to be honest, Paranorman came out that same year, and that movie's stop motion looked a million times better than this. But I suppose that's most likely a stylistic decision, so I won't fault the movie for that choice. The score is also very nicely composed, though admittedly since this movie isn't a musical, it's pretty forgettable. There aren't any tunes you're gonna be humming when you leave the theater. And that right there is one of the biggest flaws in this film. This movie is
really boring.
Really, there's no other words I can think of to describe it than fucking boring. When the cobbled together mess of a plot isn't meandering around or running into dead ends, it's wasting time focusing on the damn dog who does nothing but dog stuff. Riveting. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a dog person, but I still would have to imagine that these long, drawn-out scenes with Sparky are boring to just about anyone. And the fun doesn't stop there. If you're able to sit through the dull-ass scenes that precede it, you will find one of the most idiotic climaxes ever put to film. If you haven't seen this movie, I don't think you can even fathom just how stupid it is, but trust me, it's 7 flavors of moronic. And you'd think, with a movie about reanimating the dead body of your pet for your own selfish needs, and that the ending would have the main character realize his error and that he should not be toying with life, right? Well, if you believe that, then don't even bother pressing the play button. The deeper you dig into this movie only reveals more stratums of foolishness. Like, can you guess if this movie was in 3D or not? Well, take a look at some of this brilliant cinematography and tell me if it's in 3D.
Gasp! I never would have guessed.
While some people who are fans of the era of black and white horror films might enjoy all the homages and references to the universal era of monster movies, as well as kaiju films, and the classic Mary Shelley Frankenstein novel, those of you who only have a cursory knowledge will miss out on a lot of what makes this movie even the least bit entertaining, which is not a good thing to do. And it continues. This movie has no idea what era it's supposed to be in too. Victor's parents live in this sorta 1950s Leave It to Beaver sensibility with all this retro-style appliances. But the homes on the outside look more akin to that 1980s gentrified white suburb look. Then there's remarks like this.
Apparently, Pluto isn't good enough to be a planet anymore.
That would make this movie take place in 2006 at the very least, but then why is Bambi playing in theaters when it came out in 1942? You might say I'm nitpicking at this point, but these are not nitpicks. These are constant and incredibly distracting things that I noticed with even my limited engagement with the film, and it's so goddamn irritating. I can honestly say from the bottom of my heart that I greatly dislike this movie. But, does that make it bad? I have to concede that it does not. It's just not a movie for me. If you haven't been bothered by anything I've talked about today, then you might find a movie that's worth digging up this Halloween. I give Frankenweenie a personal score of 1 eye out of 5, but for the movie itself, I give it 2.5 eyes out of 5. So, Frankenweenie, is it watchable? To me, personally, I fall asleep every single time, but to the general public, I'd say, yeah, you'd find it at the very least tolerable. Is it enjoyable? Well, if you like the near-constant references to old horror movies, or if you're a dog lover and you just like watching dogs be dogs, then yeah, I'm sure you'd find something to enjoy in it. Is it memorable? What movie was I reviewing again? I once tried to build a machine that would keep up Want to stay up to date with the latest EyeofSol news? You can follow me on Facebook as well as Twitter at facebook.com/EyeofSol and twitter.com/EyeofSol299. I try to update them as much as I can, and I always post updates at least once a day, so give them a follow, a like, whatever if you want to see what's going on. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my review of Frankenweenie. Don't forget there's one more movie in this spooky month of Halloween. If you want to see more of my stuff, as well as the previous Spooky Sol episodes, you can see the videos playing right there in the video right now. Or if you want to check out my various social media platforms, you can see the links on the page there, or on the description to see my Twitch channel, Twitter page, and my Facebook fan page. I update them as much as I can, especially my Twitter. I'm very active on that now. Have an idea for an animated series or movie you want me to comment on? You can leave me a message in the YouTube comments, on any one of my social media platforms, or just let me know in any way you can think of to let me know what you want to see, and I will add it to my list. Alright, thanks again for watching everybody, and I will see you next week for the final episode in Sol's Spooky Halloween.